Hi, my name is Gibson, and I'm the creator of the Personal Development School. This is your daily breakthrough video, and in this video, I want to talk to you a little bit about what burnout is, as well as the major stages of burnout and the correlating symptoms that have to do with each of these major stages. Please know as well that if you want to do a deeper dive into burnout, we have a really long form webinar in our webinar library inside PDS that's about an hour and a half long. That's all about burnout and how to actually overcome it, because it's not always caused exactly by what we think. And I think it's really important for us to realize that, hey, burnout is not simply a physiological condition that just has to do with like the amount of hours we're working or the amount of time we're putting into something. Of course, that's going to play a role, but a lot of times there's a massively different impact if we're working at 50 hours doing something we absolutely love and adore versus if we're working 50 hours doing something we absolutely can't stand, and how that impacts us psychologically, how our thought patterns or processes about what we're doing can have an impact on the way we feel, which then has an impact on our neurochemistry over time, which then has an impact on regulating our nervous system function. And just to give you an example there, like if I'm doing a job, let's say that I strongly dislike, for 50 hours a week, I'm probably having a lot of thoughts that are like frustrated, in resistance, are focusing on the negative things about the job, negative things about, different things that I'm doing within the job. And over time, like thoughts create emotional output, and emotions go hand in hand with our neurochemical reactions. So I might have more cortisol responses, which is linked to stress, which has an effect on my immune system, which then also is more likely to trigger me to be in sympathetic nervous system mode or fight or flight mode, as opposed to parasympathetic nervous system mode. So there's this massive chain reaction of events. And that's just one of the other root causes of burnout. There's so many other ones. So, we'll go through a whole bunch of stuff. But if you want to do a deep dive into this and actually learn what those other root causes are, and then how to reprogram them, how to create change, how to make an exit strategy over something that's not serving you, check out our long form webinar on burnout. You can click the link in the description box below, join the school for our 7-day free trial. And there's a full webinar there with all sorts of tips and tools and all kinds of stuff in the webinar library that we recently just put out. So you can check that out. You can also check out our attachment styles in the workplace course that will take you through a lot of really powerful information related to burnout as well, and our different patterns and all that kind of stuff. So burnout itself is a state, and this is according to the Mayo Clinic, this is the Mayo Clinic's definition, is a state of physical or emotional exhaustion that also involves a sense of reduced accomplishment and even loss of personal identity. And I think this is a really interesting component of this, because what I find is people who are really burnt out, usually for some period of time, have focused so much on the workplace area or even like career and financial areas of their lives that they almost became one with that thing. And usually, like we see with any like sort of codependent related behavior, we'll often see that if we get into a relationship, let's say, as an analogy, and we're codependent in that romantic relationship, what you see is other areas of life get pushed to the side. So you may see, for example, somebody stop showing up with their friends, stop showing up with their family members because they're so focused on the romantic relationship. They start spending all their money on dates, on traveling. They start getting to a situation where they go to their career and they kind of show up late, or they leave early all the time, or they're texting on the phone all day with the person they're codependently involved with while they're at work, and they stop thinking ahead and like making a plan for themselves. And you'll see one by one these different areas of our life almost get picked off by a romantic relationship if we're very codependent. And the interesting thing about burnout is I tend to see a habit that's just like the reverse version of this in the career. It's like usually people who are really burnt out for some kind of long period of time have been like obsessively focusing on their career, even if they're just working 40 hours a week. Maybe it's because they're obsessively focused on their problems with their boss in the workplace, their problems with their coworkers in the workplace. And maybe they leave work and they tell all their friends and family members about the frustrating people at work, or how much they dislike their job. Or there's this element of like, in whatever form it's taking and for whatever reason it is specific to the individual, it's like the work is not being left at work. It's being taken home. And there's sort of this obsessive focus in the career, but maybe not from a perspective of like, I'm loving what I'm doing. I'm really inspired. I can't wait to get a promotion or get ahead, and it's not that type of energy or relationship. It's usually like, I hate my job. I strongly dislike it. So there's this over attachment to the career area of life, which I think is really interesting to sort of keep track of. So this was according to a study done at Winona State University, where they actually talked about burnout and sort of did a deep dive into discovering the different stages of burnout. And what they found is that normally it starts off with some form of honeymoon stage. Now, of course, this can exist along a continuum. So maybe somebody starts off and they get a job that they don't even really like, but maybe they just need to put food on the table, right? Pay the bills, put a roof over their head. Maybe they just need to literally get a job. So they may start off kind of like happy about the job, right? Like there's a honeymoon stage, like I'm here, I'm grateful to be here. Of course, in different along the continuum in a way, you may see different individuals who start off maybe in a corporate job working for somebody and they're like, yes, I love my new job and I'm really happy about it. And so we see this honeymoon stage, and it's usually marked by things like accepting responsibility, a certain degree of job satisfaction, productivity, optimism, these sorts of things. Then the second stage is onset of stress. And this can happen on one end of the continuum because after working there for 2 weeks, you're like, oh my gosh, I don't like my job, but I have to put food on the table kind of thing. Or it can be, oh my gosh, I love my job so much. I took on all this responsibility and now I'm starting to feel like overwhelmed, right? And in this case, you'll see things like reduced sleep quality. You'll see irritability, anger, anxiety, lack of social interaction. And then this is the big marker that really stood out to me, which is neglect of personal needs. So you can see this like cycle starting to build up. And then you see in stage 3, chronic stress. And this is like persistent tiredness, procrastination, feeling pressured, having numbing or avoidance components. And what I really want to highlight here is we often numb or avoid or even seek pleasure when we are in subtle pain, because the mind has a homeostatic impulse. It wants to equilibrate. So if we're in pain because we don't like our workplace, you know what I always saw in people in my practice? I would see that if somebody didn't like what they're doing, they're trying to pleasure seek during the day. It's like they're like quickly trying to watch funny videos during the day while they're supposed to be working, or they are on social media while at work, like seeking some kind of like sensation, right? Like, oh, like cool pictures or something. Or they're going to the vending machines all the time on their breaks, or they can't wait for happy hour as soon as the day's done. And it's the mind equilibrating because there's this resistance that's there in the background all day. And then you try to get out of that negative state by seeking something to overcome it. It's how the subconscious mind works. And so we'll see these sorts of like chronic stress components come up, and we'll see like a lot of that procrastination, feeling pressured, numbing, avoidance, and then things like withdrawing from work, apathy, not really working hard or showing up, and this sort of like decline of productivity. And then we actually have burnout itself, which is usually there's some form of marker that's an obsession with problems. You may even see in more extreme cases GI issues, according to this study, a very pessimistic outlook, self-doubt, isolation, and ongoing and pervasive neglect of needs, behavioral changes, and escapism. And then we have stage 5, which is our habitual burnout, which can really be like chronic sadness, mental fatigue, physical fatigue, and just really not good feelings. And this is usually when we feel like we can't solve the problem, right? And we tend to get into a situation in cases like this for people where they feel so overwhelmed just by being at work and the amount of resistance and frustration there is related to work, and then negative thinking there is about work when they come home, that usually this person will start withdrawing from others because it's like they're just so out of balance, right? It's like they're just in survival mode. And when we're in survival mode, if you think about it, you're not like, oh, yay, I can't wait to go hang out with friends when I'm trying to survive. Or I can't wait to see my family and plan for a family event on the weekend. You're like surviving. So you usually have like creature comfort seeking behaviors, a lot of like immediate self-soothing behaviors. You may come home from work, just turn on the TV, just avoid, and then kind of go back into the cycle the next day of like, get up, take all your energy to get up, to go into work, come home, feel exhausted. You're just in survival mode. You can just kind of get through the night by like getting some fast food and just watching whatever's on the television. And you see these habits. And what's so important to recognize is even if you're not somebody who's working an insane amount of work hours, you can be disempowered by what you're doing enough where you're just still burnt out. Thank you for being here. Please like, share, and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. And I'm grateful for you guys for being here, and I will see you in the next video.